it's Coach Tori, and this is Raising Runners. We talk running, fitness, mental health, and so many more topics. As the founder of a youth running program, I approach all of our conversations with our youth athletes in mind and kind of have a focus around those things. But as you will see, we are finding that all of these topics relate to runners and people who like to move and do fitness or anything like that. Relates to everybody. Check it out. Hey, it's Coach Tori, and I am here just doing a little intro. Today's episode, we have an amazing guest. Well, I should say I have an amazing guest because Jeff was traveling and unable to join me. So today I get to interview Jordan, who is a runner, mom, teacher. She started a run club. She's also started running a run club with kids at the school. She, I guess, is an ultra runner. We first start talking about her 200-kilometer run through, I guess, like the wilderness in her backyard, basically. So it's really, really cool. She talks all about just the love of running, finding joy in, doing running, being outside, things that don't have to have these typical outcomes or like a typical finish line moment. So we talk a lot about that. Super inspirational. So definitely check out the interview, and I will have links to check out more from her as well. You want to start by introducing yourself because I realized I know like very little about you. I was like, my intro is going to be, it's Jordan. She's a runner, mom, teacher, and that's all I got.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that pretty much captures it. So, yeah, I'm Jordan. I'm originally from South Carolina, and then lived in Seattle for several years. And I was already into trail running before I moved there, but that kind of made it like a real deep passion. I've been a runner since I was about 14. And yeah, then my husband and I, when we were ready to start a family, moved to Australia because that's where he's originally from. And we have all sorts of lovely benefits for families over here. So we've been here for, 7 years now. And I teach at a local public school, which is like an elementary school. And that's about it. I absolutely love teaching. I love my family and love running, which goes without saying, I think.
Right. What grade do you teach, or do you teach like I
So
guess, how does it work?
my training is actually in special education, and for a while when I was teaching in Seattle, I was doing mathematics. And since I've been here, I did a bit of mathematics in Sydney for a couple of years, and now I'm teaching science K to 6, which is really fun because I get to do a lot of hands-on fun activities with kids. I get to see every student in the school, so I get to build a lot of great relationships. And if there's anyone who annoys me, I only have to see them 1 hour a week, and then and then I get a break. So I absolutely love it, and it's a really nice work-life balance for this kind of season of life when kids are young and it's not a ton of stress, which is really nice.
Yeah, I don't feel like you ever hear that from teachers. At least I don't ever hear that from teachers. Like, there
No,
must be something going on over there that's great.
no, I mean, I think that it's because I don't have a classroom. I think classroom teaching can be so draining because there's a lot of demands on classroom teachers. Like there's still aspects of my job that are really difficult, but in terms of like um, that real sense of ownership and accountability over, 25 kids and having to know them so well and inside out and be responsible for all the parent communication and things. I don't have to deal with that at the moment, which is a nice break. Which is a
Yeah.
nice break because I've been there before and that is really, really draining.
I definitely want to talk about more school stuff, but before we get there, I feel like I have to, everyone's probably like, what are you guys talking about? Teachers talk about running. So here we
Yeah,
are.
sorry.
No, oh, that was all me. So you mentioned you've been a runner pretty much your whole life, which is, I'm always fascinated because I've also been a runner my whole life, but I feel like I meet so many people who are just like started running as adults. So I'm like, when I meet runners who've run forever, I'm like, ah, my people too.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's just kind of a unique, like running's kind of always been, I imagine, part of what you do. But I found you as your friend Alicia told me that she sent me your YouTube video from that run you did. And it was a 200-kilometer run through the wilderness. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. Basically a 200-kilometer run from kind of my, well, actually literally my house, then through the wilderness that we butt up next to and all the way to the highest peak in Australia, which is Mount Kosciuszko.
Wow. So I'm definitely going to link the video for people to be able to find it because I thought it was a great video and it's not like a super long watch, which is always helpful, I think, for busy people. But
Yeah, yeah.
uh, can you, I guess, talk a little bit about why you decided to do this run? Just because I think a lot of the times we're thinking of like, okay, ultra running, we don't always understand it, but we're like, oh yeah, it's a race. You get the belt buckle, you do all this stuff, but you did this run just for you, is what it seems like. So can you talk a little bit about like
Yes.
how that kind of came about?
Yeah, so I think kind of one of the reasons, so where we live in Australia is about, well, it's kind of the middle of nowhere. Most people in Australia wouldn't really know where it is. So we're 4 hours from Sydney, 5 hours from Melbourne, and 2 hours from Canberra. So if we want to go to, most kind of big things, um, airports at least an hour and a half away, like we're quite isolated, but we butt up against a national park and it's really underdeveloped and underappreciated on this side of the park. So the eastern side of the park has heaps of ski resorts and has a real sort of mountain town vibe. But where we are, it's kind of just it's a working class town, but it's just chock full of amazing scenery and some really great mountains that people just don't get out and appreciate. And one of my ideas when moving to this town, well, one is there's really great fishing here as well. I like to fish. So we moved down here because it kind of had everything we needed. And I wanted to bring a bit of attention to the area. I think it's a it's an absolutely incredible spot and it deserves more focus on outdoor recreation opportunities. And kind of the reason I agreed to let the local outdoor store make the film was because I wanted to kind of showcase it and say, hey, look at this amazing place. Everybody kind of thinks about two or three spots in Australia to go trail running. And there's all these other places that are really underutilized. And I just kind of wanted to bring attention to it. And I was looking at the map and I saw that I could make the route happen and pretty much run 200 Ks on touching very little pavement. I think it was about 5 Ks of pavement in total. And that just was really appealing to me.
Yeah, I mean, again, everyone's gonna have to watch the video. It looks beautiful out there, but also like a little scary. You ran by yourself. Do you often run alone in the woods? Like, is that something you're just you feel
Yeah,
fine
yeah, I think
doing?
yeah, I think I have been running. I mean, even when I did my undergraduate degree in New York City, and even then I would take the train up to the Catskills and run there for the day for a couple of hours by myself. And I think it was one of those things that the first few times it scared me, and then you start to think about it logically, and you go, how, apart from snakes and bears and all those things, which you can take precautions over, everybody really just worries about people. And if you think
Hmm.
about it logically, like someone would have to go through so much effort to go out onto the trails and hurt you. And also, they'd have to be as physically fit as you are to keep up with you. Like when you actually dial into it, the risk is so astronomically low um, that, yeah, it's easy to get freaked out at times. But I think once you kind of take the precautions you can take around wildlife, and realize that most of the world's not out to hurt you, those fears kind of evaporate, and you have a lot of good instances. And of course, bad things do happen, but I don't let it stop me from getting out and enjoying things.
Yeah, I know that's a great way to look at it, and as I'm running by myself the next time and I'm having like a little panic, I'll try to remember that. Because it's like more of a recent thing that's developed that I'm like now fearful of, being out in the dark running alone. But anyway, I've already talked about that. People don't need to hear that again.
Yeah.
um but you also, I mean, obviously you did run that by yourself, but you did have different times where there were people running with you. It seems like you have a really nice support system of like your family, but then other runners. Can you talk a little bit about, and I'm sure we'll also get into maybe the running group at your school, but talk a little bit about how you like build that community or where you find like a great support system for running or just in life.
Yeah, so when I moved down here, I kind of asked around and said like, "Oh, is there any running group?" Because like, I mean, we've got 7 Ks of paved and gravel path next to a river. We've got like a whole mountain bike trail network. Like we've got all these incredible assets for running. I knew there had to be people around that were doing it. But there was no sort of club or organized anything. There had been in years past, but nothing was really active. So it's been about 2 years now, and I just decided to start a running club and do a once a month run and see who showed up. And then that went well. So then we moved to doing a Sunday morning run, and then that went well. So now we've added an interval session in the middle of the week, and then that went well. So now we've got two different interval sessions happening for people's different schedules, and we're getting out, we've got a town of 7,000 people, and we'll have 20 people come to a Sunday morning run and 8 people show up before that to do a bit of extra laps on the trails. And it's just become this really incredible group of people, going at all different paces and with all different goals. Some people are trying to get their fastest 5K, and some people are training for a 50K or a 100K race. So it's a really diverse group, but everybody's super supportive of each other. And it's been a real blessing. And I think it kind of showed me that if you want something like that to happen, you have to put in the work. You can't like wait for it to come to you. Um, you need to just try it and put it out there. And that people generally, like, people want that sort of thing. They want community, they want connection. Um, and it was a bit of effort and time consuming to get it going, but now it kind of just runs itself, which is really, really rewarding to see.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that sounds amazing that there's so many people that show up even on like an early Sunday morning. That's great.
Yeah, yeah, it's great.
Um, and now were some of those people who ran with you during your run through the mountains and all that? Or is that just other runners
Yeah,
that you know?
no, no. So there's all of the people that were involved in the run were people who were from our running group here in town. And so I had just put it out to them at a Sunday morning. I just said, "Oh, hey, I'm thinking about," people said, "Oh, what are you going to run next?" And I said, "Oh, I'm thinking about doing this." And without me even asking, everyone kind of just said, "Oh, I want to help. I want to come along for a leg. Do you need pacers? Like, do you want us to drop gear off?" Um, volunteered to loan equipment if needed. Pretty much, yeah, everybody just got really, really excited about jumping in and helping out. And even if they weren't necessarily fit enough to run, like I had a friend who wanted to help, but there was a section along a fire road, so she decided she'd just ride her mountain bike with
Mhm.
me. And so she joined for a mountain bike leg. And yeah, everyone just was really excited to be a part of it.
Oh, I bet. Um, Now maybe that was your best run ever, but do you have a run that you think, I guess, oh, there was like so many questions I wanted to ask. Do you have
That's
a run?
okay.
My brain just like, sometimes it just splits, right? Um,
Yep.
do you have a run that you think you learned the most, whether it was this run or another run, whether it's like about yourself, about running, just about like, wow, it feels amazing to be, just in this life now, like anything that was just like, I learned the most from this run.
Yeah, that's hard because I think
Yeah.
so many, like with this run, because there were so many people involved with it, and I was, seeing people at different points or catching up with them, I wasn't so much in my head as I can be at other times. But then on other sort of really long things, it's been a race. And so I've been quite focused, like in a race, I get quite focused on the timings and distances, and there's not a whole lot of like soul searching or deep thinking. I get really kind of just
Mm-hmm.
about the numbers, how many more minutes do I have until I get to here, how many more Ks is left after that. Um, but I think this run really reinforced for me the value of community, because I do tend to run on my own and train on my own. And I would have happily done the run entirely on my own. But because so many people wanted to be involved in it, it helped me see that my running is not just giving things to me, but it's also giving back to the people around me. And I had never really conceived of it that way. I'd always kind of thought of the running as something I did for myself, which it is, but seeing the positive impact that it's had on other people makes me feel like I'm slightly less selfish about it. And also that, um, yeah, that there's a bit of a bigger purpose to it.
Yeah. Um, Kind of with like being, you mentioned you weren't totally in your head or out of your head when you were doing that run. Um, and I imagine, and it sounded kind of like in the video too, like obviously it was cold and you're running that far. There's pain involved too.
Yeah.
What kind of tricks do you, yeah, I bet, right? I can't imagine. But like what kind of tricks do you use to keep yourself positive if you're staying positive, or like kind of keep yourself in it? Because obviously you've done a lot of running on your own. Sometimes having support from other people can help, but when you're frozen, wet, in pain, um you need to do a lot to be able to stay in it instead of just being like, yeah, I'll get in the car and go home.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think it helps that kind of at the worst points, like there wasn't an option to bail at the car. Like I think if anyone watches the YouTube video, there's one of the guys who ran with me for a bit, Mark, is talking about he was really worried about me getting in the car. But the point he was thinking about, I wasn't really struggling at that point. Was struggling later, but at that point I was 20 Ks, like a 20 kilometers, so 13 miles from the nearest road. And it was 3 a.m. Like I wasn't going to, and there wasn't a car there anymore because someone had come to pick that car up. So there wasn't an option. Like it was just go forward. But I think the strategies that I do rely on, I do a lot of like counting or calculating or thinking like, okay, this particular climb, so just staying really present, like this particular climb is going to take me 10 more minutes. After that 10 minutes, I'm going to have a bit of easy jogging. Or it's only been, it's been 2 hours and I only have 2 more hours until I can get to the creek crossing. And then after the creek crossing, it's only 1 hour after that. So breaking it into really small chunks, I think is a strategy I go to a lot to kind of stay less overwhelmed by what's left,
Mm-hmm.
um, and more just focused on the present moment. Music is great. I don't use music constantly, so I usually use it like as a when I'm in a low spot to put some
Yeah.
music on, and just have that bit of mental distraction.
Yeah, no, that definitely is, I can imagine that it's helpful to not have it all the time, right? Because then it's just you start to also get numb to that aid and it's not going to,
Exactly. Yeah, it loses its punch a little bit.
right. So now you finish that run. What does, because there's no, not that there's no finish line feeling or there's no finish line, but there wasn't, I saw the end of your run and your family was there and it was kind of like this was the moment, but there's not like the tape, there's not the balloons, there's
Yes,
not
exactly.
crowd, right?
There's no glory. It's just done.
Right. So like
No one
what
knows
does,
about it.
right, no one handed you your medal or your buckle or a
Nope.
banana. I'm sure someone gave
Nope.
you some food, but
Nope.
what
Yeah.
what does that now feel like? Because obviously you accomplished something amazing. But just it looks a little different.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it was kind of I wasn't quite expecting that. I was expecting to have this huge elation afterwards. And there was a bit of excitement when I came back to work and everybody knew about it and kids were asking me about it. Um, but it was a bit different than finishing a race and being able to look back on it and have kind of a performance metric to reflect on. With this, it was kind of like, oh, I got it done, but there wasn't, a time to compare it to or to go, could I have done it faster? Could I have, done XYZ differently? It kind of was just like I did it, and there wasn't really a way to say whether it was good enough,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is silly. Like it doesn't need to be.
Right.
So there doesn't need to be that, but I realized that I think I often reflect on races in that way in terms of like performance, and this was not necessarily a performance. Like it was a hard thing to do, and I got it done, and that is a performance in itself. But it didn't feel the same as like accomplishing, you know, 24 hours at a 100 miler or something.
Right. I imagine you have a lot of like intrinsic motivation if you're the kind of person who
Yes.
does something like that, right? Because I feel like, and I've talked to other people about this on different episodes too, about like, I feel like as runners now, just with the way that we all look at running, like we're starting to be conditioned to be more extrinsically motivated because we're like, I want the t-shirt, I want the medal, I want to be able to compare to this person on Strava. Like we're just
Yeah.
really, we get focused on those things, but it's like, you really, running can be so much just for you and for the feeling of doing it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it is. And I think like that's when it's in the moment, I'm really good about that and going like, oh, this is, not focusing on it in the moment. But afterwards it is hard to not go, oh, well, how does this compare to doing this race? Or yeah, I don't know how to accurately phrase it, but it was a bit of like, oh, I didn't realize that I was so motivated by the performance or the post sort of race, not necessarily any swag, but the placement, the time, those sort of things.
Now, do you have another race or run planned currently that you're thinking of doing?
Well, I got into the Hard Rock Lottery on the weekends after 9 years. So I
Oh
am
my
going to Hard
gosh.
Rock in 2024 and I am so excited.
Oh my gosh. Well, congrats. That's super exciting.
Thanks. Yeah,
Nine
it is super
years.
exciting. It's super
Wow.
exciting. It's been 9 years, so very, very much looking forward to that.
So now with that, and you mentioned balance with like work and life and everything, but balance with life, work, and running, I imagine training can, I find it hard, and I'm always asking people like how they do it. So
Yeah,
how do you find
yeah.
that
I actually
balance?
I've thought about that. I think I may go back. I used to write a blog like 7 or 8 years ago, and I think I may go back and kind of document the training because I do get that question a lot about that balancing. I think it's a lot of flexibility, and it's for me, it's been really, really nice to have a coach. Like as you mentioned, our friend Alicia is my coach, Alicia
Oh,
Woodside, and we used to run and race together a lot when I lived in the Northwest, and just having a coach to kind of one help with understanding what's the right amount of training so that I'm not undertraining or overtraining, but being able to structure the right amount of training for what my work demands are, family demands are, and so being able to put that trust in someone else, and rather than me always questioning whether I'm doing enough when I'm programming stuff for myself, putting that faith in a coach to go, this person is going to tell me whether I need to do more or whether I'm doing too much. And just not having that mental load has been really helpful. I think I used to spend a lot of time stressing about whether I was doing the right kind of training or if I missed a training day. Um, how to adjust to it. And so having a coach has been really, really nice. And um, I think it's about being flexible too. So understanding like the purpose of runs. So Alicia will tell me like, I want you to get in this many miles today, but it doesn't actually matter if it's broken up into a couple of runs or if it's all done at one time, whatever's most convenient for you. But then these sessions, like these 2 sessions, you need to find an hour and a half for these sessions. So prioritizing the quality sessions, and then with the easy runs, just doing what I can and understanding like if it's 45 minutes instead of 50 minutes, it's not a huge deal, and letting that go and not stressing about it has been really good. I do a lot of runs in the morning, like long runs, usually in early in the morning. Tuesdays when I'm at home, which is today in Australia, I jumped on the treadmill for an hour and 20 minutes, which is really boring, but it's super hot and a double cram is really heavy and not fun to push when it's 30 degrees outside, 30 Celsius, so like, I don't know, 85 degrees
oh my
Fahrenheit outside.
gosh.
I mean, people can do it, but it's just not fun. So I went on the treadmill and got it done.
And that's how you make it work.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I didn't realize Alicia was your coach. She sounds like a great
Yeah.
coach.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
she just
she's a
said my
great
friend
coach.
Jordan. So
Yeah, we are friends, but she's also been my coach for the last, oh, I think she's been coaching for about 6 months or so. Um, I always really hesitated to get a coach because it's expensive. Like it's a big cost, but um it's been really, really nice to not have that as something I need to worry about. With everything else, you know how like the decision fatigue goes with what's going to happen for dinner, what are the kids going to wear today, what am I going to wear today, what are we going to do with this? Um, just having one less thing to worry about has been really good.
yeah, well, and I mean, I imagine maybe it is harder, not hard. Like I know I've hired a coach in the past too, and it was, I thought it was going to be a struggle for me to just like completely let go and sorry, my like whole studio, I moved rooms and now it's like falling
Oh,
apart.
I didn't
I'm like,
I
so
didn't
it's
see it.
like
It's so
hitting me in the
tiny. I didn't
head.
see it
I'm like,
drop.
what is going on? Good thing we're not doing video today. But anyway, um, but I thought I was going to struggle as like, I've always programmed my runs myself, that having someone tell me what to do. But just like you mentioned, like someone just tell me what to do and being able to just go and like enjoy my runs. I know this is what I'm supposed to do. I don't have to beat myself up
Yep.
over if I get this done,
Yep,
not get done.
exactly.
Like, they do take over all of that for you, which is, it is so nice to just kind of like, I run because I'm running and not because I have to like tell myself to do this or not do this.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. I was similar. I kind of always thought, oh, I know what I'm doing. I can program for myself, and I can. Like, and fundamentally, what I'm doing hasn't changed that much. Like, there's a slightly more miles and maybe a bit more consistency and structured speed work, but realistically, it's not much different from what I could do myself. But the benefit of having someone to tell me what is the right amount and to be able to trust in that rather than feeling like I have to manage that is it's such a relief. I didn't think that I was going to find it as great as I have.
Yeah. This is like totally switching topics now, but this is often how
That's
my
okay.
brain goes jumping all over the place. Um, Thinking back to trail running. So I've only ever done like very minimal amounts of trail running, like ran cross country and all, run through
Yeah.
the woods near my house. Um, but where did you like, at what point did you decide like, I'm going to be a trail runner who runs long distances in the woods away from civilization, and like what survival skills? Because you mentioned like the snakes and bears or whatever, like, you just be prepared, but like, when do you like, okay, I need to learn how to be able to navigate out here and do all these things that like are addition to just like going on a run?
Yeah, I think I probably was lucky enough to decide that when I was young and probably a bit stupid, like 17, 18, I think I did my first trail run. And it was so exciting. Like it was so exciting to be on different terrain. I'd done cross country, I'd done track, I'd done road marathons, like just and the consistency of effort with that was a bit fatiguing, and I kind of was just done with it. And the thing that I loved about trails is there was always like constantly something changing. So I wasn't having to really like, distract myself in the 13th mile of a flat road. Um, you could there was a hill and you could go up the hill, and then all of a sudden you were in a muddy section, and then you were crossing over a creek. So there were all these like things happening around just the actual running, which was really interesting. And so I think I probably was going out, especially in those first few years, without really knowing what I was doing too much. And I was carrying water, but I probably wasn't carrying, in Australia especially, like we carry a snake bandage all the time because like you can get killed by snakes here. Um, and then as I kind of got more and more into it, I just picked things up along the way. So the first kind of like big trail ultra I did was over here in Australia in 2011, and they have mandatory gear. So in a lot of trail races in the US, like there's no stipulations on what you have to carry. But here there's, because of insurance, you always have to be carrying like an extra layer. You have to carry gloves and a beanie, even if it's a summer race. Like you've got to be carrying a whole host of safety gear, which kind of, because I wanted to practice carrying that stuff, I kind of just got in the habit of carrying it. So then when I moved to Washington State in Seattle and I was doing runs out there, I was already used to carrying a first aid kit in my pack. I was used to checking the weather forecast. I was used to having some, a space blanket in case a thunderstorm came up and you sprained your ankle or whatever. And so I think I just kind of picked things up along the way. I went to Montana and I was scared of bears, so we learned about carrying bear spray. So then I would carry bear spray when I was in bear territory. Um, you know, it was kind of a slow accrual of skills just based on where I was and what I needed at the time. So I
Mm-hmm.
think if you try and jump into it and try and learn all of it at one time, it's really overwhelming. But I know that now there's so many organizations that are dedicated to getting women out trail running. Like there's Trail Sisters in the US, there's Her Trails over here in Australia. Um, there's so many resources that are out there and so many guided group runs as well that are women specific that if people are interested in trail running but intimidated by it, that's what I would recommend is doing one of those guided groups because then you can get out and sometimes they're free even. You can get out, learn those things in a community of supportive women who are also often kind of at the same point in the journey.
I love that. That was, yeah, I didn't even think of that as an idea, but well, also I love how you mentioned like how you're getting this knowledge is, yeah, it can be overwhelming as you first try to learn something and like I just need to learn
Yeah,
everything, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
no, that that totally makes sense to have it in like as time goes on, I just get more things. I'm collecting more gear that I'm carrying.
yeah,
And then yeah,
exactly.
finding the group is amazing. Do you have any advice or anything for people experiencing, I feel like unfortunately so many people experience burnout with their running, whether it is like overtraining or they've been running for their entire lives and like I'm just not even, what am I even doing this for? But it sounds like you found so much love with running. So do you have any advice for people who are having like a hard time finding that love still?
I think that it's really important to understand like that there are seasons of it and that expecting yourself to be the same level of hyped up about running every single day for 15, 20 years straight, it's unrealistic. I think like my running has really benefited from having two pregnancies and having to take a break. Like I ran through my pregnancies, but then took a short break after having each kid, like well, I think 5 weeks or something, which was way too short with my first, and then like 10 or 11 weeks with my second. And having that forced time off has really helped me appreciate the process. And I think also the as much as you can make it a habit, then motivation, because motivation is actually kind of like a fallacy. Sometimes you have to actually start doing something in order to feel like you want to continue to do it. And I think making running a habit makes it much easier just to do it consistently. And then you're not having to have that battle of like, oh, I really need to get out the door. Because if you just do it, like if you know that you're going to do it every day, or I run like 6 days a week, and that consistency has been in the last 3 or 4 years where I've gone not just 6 days a week. I'm just going to get out the door and run. This is basically the time I'm going to run every day, and there's not even the push to motivate anymore. It's kind of like this is just a thing that I do, and it feels so much part of daily routines. It's still hard to get out there for like a long run if it's raining or a speed workout that feels really intimidating. But I think just having it as part of your routine and then also changing the intensity. So having some seasons where you're running a lot less, where you're just doing some 30-minute runs, and then some seasons where you're training a bit harder makes it easier to kind of keep that interest going.
Yeah, and I think at least I know for me for the longest time it was like, I ran in high school, ran in college, ran as an adult with like no purpose, but it's just like I knew I ran, that's what I was supposed to do.
Yeah,
And I got to a point where I was like there was no reason I was out running, but also like I knew I went to go run, but yeah, I got to a point like I was starting to stress like if I couldn't go for a run because I'm like I always am running,
yeah,
and then you start to get
yeah,
like a little crazy about your routine, and kind of like
yeah,
you mentioned about like the pregnancies, right? So
yeah,
I feel like my son is 2.5. And like I've been in like a weird running phase since he's been born, but like sometimes we run
yeah.
every day for his naps, but sometimes like right now I haven't been running for like a month and I couldn't be less stressed about it. Like I'm not going crazy
And I
about
think
not running.
yeah, and I think that is healthy, like that it's okay to just have seasons where you don't run at all or you don't run very much. Like and recognize that taking a break doesn't mean that like you're never going to be a runner again, right? You can have those breaks. You can do other things that are movement. Like people always say, do I think I think the film starts off with me talking about how I don't think everybody should run, but I think everybody should move outside. Um, and yeah, that it's, changing things up and doing something different for a while doesn't mean you're never going to get back to running and you're never going to be a consistent runner again. It's just where you're at in the moment. And if you aren't ever a consistent runner again, like who cares? If you're doing something else that makes you happy, that's fine.
Right. Yeah, no, and it's nice to be like, I feel like I just finally realized like, yeah, I am going to start running again and I have plans to run a marathon in the spring.
Yep.
But right now I'm just super cool not running. And I think sometimes we get like, I used to be so like, I missed a day of running. I'm totally off track, all these things. So
Yeah.
yeah, like you said, finding a balance, having, it ebbs and flows. You run a lot, you train for something, you take some breaks, you run easy. And I think that can help you find the love and like passion to stay doing it for a longer period of time, which is nice.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
do you have anything? I feel like we had things we were going to talk about. We kind of, because of me, jumped in a bunch of directions. But
That's okay.
do you have
I'm
anything that
good at
like
bunch
you
of directions.
do you have anything you wanted to talk about that we didn't get to? I'm gonna let you go soon so you can finish up all your
Well,
things at home.
I need to wake my 2.5-year-old up from their nap because
Yes.
otherwise she won't go back to bed when I want her to. Um, no, I think we kind of like, kind of my big things are just building community and then, um, yeah, just finding things that bring you joy, which is, running in this season. But I think also like, yeah, having an off season, going back to the conversation we were just having, like if people want to have kind of, yearly goals, structuring in that off season is really, really valuable.
Mm-hmm.
Just to kind of put the fire back under you,
Yeah. No,
doing something else for a few months.
yeah, I think
Can't
that's
think of
great
anything.
advice.
Oh, do you want to chat about the running group at school? That's really short
Yeah.
chat because we've had our fields flooded for like, I don't know, 6 months or something. So we haven't been running it recently, but it was really, really good while it was going. And hopefully next year after a summer, because it's obviously going into summer down here, after the summer dries them up a bit, we'll get back to it. But
Yeah.
yeah, we kind of started the running club and got it going and had it going for a month or so, and then everything flooded and we haven't really been able to use the sports fields. So
And so that's just like a group of kids. I know it's in your video, and then I will let you go wake up your
yeah,
baby. But so it's just a group of kids get to come and kind of like move with you for
well,
however
it's
long
just
during the
at
day.
recess. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, we're just
cool.
at recess. So instead of we playing on the playground, if they want to just come and run a couple laps, they can do that. They can come and run for 50 meters and then get back to whatever they were doing. But just having that time where I'm out there, if they want to come up, run with me, gives kids a chance to kind of do some structured activity when they might not otherwise. They might just be running around trying to figure out something to do or trying to find someone to play with. It's just a little space that they can come, be active, and have a chat. That's the whole
Yeah.
idea.
And exposing them to like you have fun running, so I'm sure like they see that and it's like, oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
exactly. We play some games with it. We do funny runs, we do skipping, we just kind of change it up a little bit. But yeah, it's just a chance for them to see that like activity can be fun.
Yeah. No, I love that. And again, I will let you go because I appreciate you taking time to talk with
Yeah.
me.
No,
I'll make
not a
sure
problem.
I'll make sure I link the video because again, if people are interested in hearing more about all of this, I think like a lot of these topics were touched on a little bit in the video too. So get a little more info. And then is there
Yeah.
anywhere else people can find you? Anything that you want to plug, anything like that?
I mean, yeah, they can follow my Instagram. It's Maki Runs, Maki Runs. I'm trying to be slightly more active on there. I tend to go in waves of being active and taking time away from it, but I feel like I'm at a good pace with it now, where it's not taking
Yeah.
up too much of my life, but I'm still able to kind of share a few things. So, yeah, that's it. Or on Facebook, Strava, all the normal places, not TikTok, because I'm 35 and we're too old for that.
Oh, awesome. Well, thank you, Jordan. This has
All right.
been so
Thanks,
awesome.
Tori. It's been good to chat.
All right. Hold on
Okay.
1 second. I'm just gonna stop the recording. But if you I know you have to go. Sorry. I keep saying I'm gonna let you go and then I keep
Okay.
talking to you. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you rate, review, subscribe, all the things that you can do for a podcast that you enjoy listening to. Make sure you check out social media, our website, any of those things. If you have questions, comments, interview requests, feel free to email me at marikeyrunclub@gmail.com.